Gattis, and I'll get into you guys' questions.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming out. Obviously, it's excited to be going into year 2 leading this offense. When you look back and reflect over last year, we accomplished some really great things offensively, obviously finishing top 5 in 7 of the major offensive categories in the Big Ten, leading the league, obviously, in passing yards per game, and also scoring more than 30 points in over half of our games. The thing that I'm excited about this 2024 season and this 2024 team is these guys don't want to reflect back on last year. They want to build a new identity and build a roster, build a program based on the guys we have in here. And we're really, really excited about the young men. They've been here all summer working their butts off, and we're really excited to see that progress for us to take the next step. We've obviously had some big shoes to fill. When you lose such players that we've lost, obviously along the offensive line, and DJ Glaze at the quarterback position, Talia Tungabaloa, those guys have meant a lot to this program over the last few years. But we feel really good about where we are as a program. We obviously went to the transfer portal to address some of our needs along the offensive line, bringing in Josh Kaltenberger, Aluba, Alan Haran. Okay, and being able to address some of those needs there, but then also being able to address some of the needs at the quarterback position, MJ Morris and some newcomers that'll be joining our roster that everyone will be able to see. And so we're really excited about this upcoming season. Our guys have built such a culture that's driven right now by the players, and it's a different feel around our program. I think obviously going into year 2, you have a little bit more of a understanding of who your players are, what they can do, but they also understand the expectations set forth to this program by Coach Loxley, and they have embraced it. The chemistry is very, very high. We're just looking forward to getting out there and enjoying getting back together. You know, Coach Ryan Davis has done a tremendous job with our players this summer, and hats off to him and his staff and the commitment, the time, the sacrifice that they've put in to prepare ourselves for day one. And so as I end on that, I'll obviously open it up for questions about the season.
Josh, Dave Preston, WTOP Radio in Washington. Building and rebuilding and revamping this offensive line. What are the challenges in today's day and age where a lot of new pieces, show up, and what will be the focus in getting this team on the right track, the front 5?
I think when you look at the offensive line specifically, that's typically a position that takes about 2 to 3 years to really get going from a cohesion standpoint. And Coach Braswell and Coach Robo, they always talk about you got to slow cook that position. That's a position that takes time, obviously, spending, communicating, takes time gelling together. We obviously went out and addressed that position in the transfer portal, and you saw this spring, we had some hiccups along the way, obviously just coming in, learning a new system, learning terminology, language, different techniques. But I'll tell you what, all the young men in that room have done a tremendous job this summer just growing and bonding. They're constantly out in the communities cooking for each other. There's some great cooks in that room. They spend a ton of time away from football, and that's what you need first and foremost. You need chemistry because that's the one position that takes all 5 playing collectively as one. And so we're excited about some of those newcomers, and then obviously some of the guys that return. We're just looking to continue to build, continue to build along that offensive line. Obviously, we addressed it with the portal. We also hired an extra offensive line coach, Coach Robo, to come in, and then also having Brian Ferentz. So really just devoting all of our effort and time to really developing that position. We signed 10 guys out of high school, so it's going to be very, very important for us to really bring those guys along.
Hey, Josh, Gene Wong, Washington Post. When you and the offensive staff are evaluating the starting quarterback, kind of what are the components that rise to the top that you look at first? And the follow-up would be kind of how is fall camp different with a quarterback to be determined as opposed to an incumbent who's, set records?
Yeah, I think the 3 things that I'm looking for is guys that are going to be able to own, command, and operate the offense. And that's one of the key attributes you look for at a quarterback. Someone that's going to be able to obviously have the trust of his teammates, have the trust of his team, but just do what we ask him to do and understand obviously the positives, the negatives of certain schemes, be able to be a problem solver, out on the field, and not just obviously a guy that can run the show. And so we're excited. We feel really, really good about that quarterback room. Obviously, there was a deep competition going on in the spring. That competition is going to continue on through fall camp. And then with the moment we feel like we've identified the guy that's going to lead us, we'll obviously make that decision. But right now, we're just looking forward to just seeing all of those young men take the next step. And, I think it's a very competitive room. But the one thing that I'll say about that room is that room embraces each other. the friendship, the type of young men in that room, led obviously by Billy Edwards, Cam Edge, MJ, Champ Long. You've seen Jaden Saray, obviously now adding in Christian Martin. Those guys they're close. And when you've got a healthy competition like that, that's going to bring out the best in each and every one of those young men. And so I'm excited to see them go out day one today and take the next step.
Hey, Coach. No, obviously, Coach Locke's a couple days ago. I know you mentioned at his house that you guys have a really good working dynamic, and I know obviously with Coach Locke's back in the quarterback room, how do you feel like that dynamic has kind of been able to click? I know you were able to kind of work with each other at Alabama, but what do you feel like has kind of been going right through the first season going into year two?
Oh, it's been awesome. Just the new rule now, just allowing everyone to coach. So having so many hands on deck obviously helps take a lot of things off the plate. But going into year two, I think what's different now than year one is last year we also had 3 new coaches. So we hit the ground running in the spring. We hit the ground running in the fall. We had to spend a lot of time really kind of catching up, being able to speak the same language. I think with everyone returning now, with the addition, obviously, of Coach Robo, we feel that chemistry is there. Everyone's speaking the same language, pulling the rope in the same direction. My past familiarity with Coach Loxley and our time that we've spent together, I know what he wants. I know what he expects. And so it's my job, obviously, as the offensive coordinator to create an identity for our team offensively as he envisions. And so having him in the quarterback room, I think also helps him with his relationship with that position, because the head coach and the quarterback, they've got to be hip to hip. That's a very, very tight-knit relationship in college football and all the sports. And so being able to have him help assist that position, I feel is a tremendous honor. Also allows me to be able to coach the coaches and be able to spend time amongst other positions, and also moving back to the wide receiver position. I've got 2 young, great coaches, Derek Keefe and Timmy Morris, who helped me out with that position. But that's my background into developing skill players. And so I feel we're in a really, really good place in being able to continue to develop our skill players. And we've got some pretty exciting guys, and Caden Prather and Ty Felton.
Hey, Coach, how you doing? So you talked about how you guys got a lot of players from the transfer portal. So I was wondering, what players from the transfer portal off the top of your head are you really hoping can make a huge impact for this team in 2024?
Well, I think right away when you look at the offensive line, Josh Kaltenberger, Alu Ba, and Alan Haran, those guys are going to be immediate impact guys for us. Seeing the type of transition they made coming over in the spring to now. When you look at Josh Kaltenberger, he's a guy that's played 4 years in the Big Ten. He understands this league. He knows what it takes to compete at this league. And then you got Alan Haran, who's a guy that's a massive human being, strong at the point of attack. He's the guy you want coming first off the bus. For him, it was just getting adjusted to this level of football. But he's a very talented young man. Alu Bobs, he comes from a very respected program in the University of Georgia. And so, those 3 guys have really made an impact on our offensive line because we're very young and inexperienced at that position. We've got the bodies. We feel really, really good about the coaching. Coach Braswell has done a tremendous job developing that position over the years. You look at the amount of success we've had sending guys to the NFL draft. We feel like we have the pieces left in that position to pick off and really take the next step for us, because that's going to be a huge emphasis as we create this new identity for us offensively. We want to be able to run the ball.
And with one more question. So I read that you were transitioning into a walk around OC role. So I was wondering what was the kind of process that went into that, and talk about how much you're looking forward to having even more of a hand in this offense.
It's really the NFL model. When you look at the NFL model, all offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, they walk around, and with the added privilege of the NCAA now passing the coaching rule, we've got some talented coaches on our staff, not just our older guys that everyone assumes are the full-time coaches, but some of the younger guys that, as Coach likes to say, are around the table. And so that allows us to really devote all our time and resources in developing our players. And so, like I said, we've got 3 offensive line coaches. It's really like 4 or 5 guys in that pod. We've got 3 guys working with wide receivers. We've got 2 guys, obviously Eric Nigerian, a former quarterback here, is also working with that quarterback room, and I think it's made a tremendous impact in that room with his relationship. And so we just want to pour every resource we have in the building into our players and help develop those young men. And college football has changed with all the new rules and all the new things that are happening, NIL, the landscape. We've got to continue investing in these players, and the added privilege of being able to have everyone coach is just a tremendous asset to this program.
Hey, Josh. Your running back room, veteran almost now in a lot of ways. Is that something that's helpful in terms of leaning on that early in the season as you've got a new quarterback coming into learning the offense full time?
It is. Roman Hemby is he's what this program stands for. When you talk about putting the face out in front of this program, tremendous young man. He's been here. He's played a lot of football. Just does absolutely everything the right way. But I think there's going to be some names in that room that are going to excite people. Obviously, everyone's aware of Kobe, but Nolan Ray is a young guy that that have really came on this spring and probably made one of the biggest jumps and biggest impacts on our team that people are really excited about. And so I tell Coach Scott all the time. He's got some problems on his hands now to figure out how many carries, how many touches everyone's going to get. But, we got some really good skill players, not only at the running back position. You look at the tight end position. I'm really excited about, Dylan Wade and Preston Howard. Those two young guys played a ton of ball for us last year as freshmen. And so being able to get those guys experience, being able to grow their confidence, those guys are going to take big jumps as we move forward as well.
And staying on skill positions, wide receiver, guys like Kate and Ty seem like they still have a lot out there to show people that maybe people haven't seen yet. What's the next, how do you develop them into that next step to being truly game-changing wide receivers?
They do. I believe both of those young men have got the ability to be game changers. They're both elite players, two of the best in this league, if not the country. And so they're hungry, they're motivated to show everyone. I also think people are going to learn the name of Shalik Knox. Punch has had a tremendous spring for us, tremendous player in our program, just really excited about him. But we're really deep at that position. I think when you look at the depth offensively, we've got the best depth at that wide receiver position. So being able to use guys like Octavian Smith, Braden Wislowski, Ryan Manning, we've got some guys that we can kind of go deep into a combination there and play a bunch of those guys. But when you look at the key headliners, I think Shalik Knox is going to be a guy that's going to shock the world this year out here in this league. And Ty and KP are going to continue to take the next step. Those two guys are big-time players.
We're going to take our last two, fourth row and fifth row on your right.
Hey, nice to meet you. My name is Ben Bell from Huntsman, from Top Offense. Just wondering on the process of making the offensive playbook. It's obviously going to look different than last year with all these new quarterbacks. But if you have so many quarterbacks, how can you really dive in, make that offensive playbook to kind of tailor that one offensive quarterback?
That's a great question. As I told our players and our staff, the spring we did the installation of a system. This fall is all about creating identity for an offense. We're going to be a lot different than what we've been in the past. What Talia has meant to this program, he's left a tremendous impact and legacy on this program. But our guys are excited now to create a new one. And based on that quarterback room, the depth, the talent, all the different skill sets they have, I'm really excited. We've got a no-flinch mentality right now where, next man's up. We're going to create a new identity. What that identity will be shown, obviously, game one. But we're excited. We feel like we got all the different pieces. And really what I challenged our offense yesterday is, there's two type of players really in our offense. There's guys that have the ability to be difference makers, and there's other guys that have the ability to make a difference. We feel like we have everything we need. We've got some high-end guys that are difference makers in those type players, but then we've got a core select group of guys that are willing to make a difference in whatever we ask them, and they know their clearly defined roles and what we're asking them to do. And so we're excited to build this identity. We're working hard at it. We've obviously done a ton of off-season studying and understanding who our guys are, and we're excited to put it all together. Well, tight end position, Preston Howard, Dylan Wade, those two guys are exciting players. For those guys to go out there and contribute the way they did last year as freshmen for us, Preston being a redshirt freshman, Dylan being a true freshman, we feel really, really good about that position. I think you've seen this offseason A.J. Szymanski take the next step, reshaping his body, looking more and more like a tight end, his commitment to that position. We're really excited about him. So I have no doubt in my mind we're going to get a ton of production at the tight end position. And we're one of the few teams left that still use that position. Oftentimes it's hard to find, people throwing the ball to the tight end or using that position. But for us, they're the Swiss Army knife of our system. We ask those guys to do a tremendous amount of things. They got to be great in the run game, great in the pass game, great in the pass protection game. And so they really got to be fully developed in everything that we ask them to do. Then the wide receiver position, we're excited. I think KP and Ty are still under-respected in this league and across the country. I've developed a lot of wide receivers in my past and been really, really successful in that position. Those two guys are right up there at the top when you talk about skill set and ability. And I think it showed last year. The only problem last year is we had so many guys. You had Corey Dyches catching passes. You had Jay Sean catching passes as well. And so, it's hard to compare those guys' numbers to a guy that maybe caught 1,000 yards, but he was the only wide receiver at his program. Those two guys complement each other well. And when you look at what they did in this league versus respected competition, I think obviously they're going to be ready to take the next step, and they're hungry, they're motivated, we're looking forward to it.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Coach Williams up here next.